Hello Internet, my name is David Baugh, and today we're going to be talking about character. Now, all the characters that enter your project are all fractions of the same story brain, since it's the same turning point for one character. The person we are actually forcing through the change is going to be the protagonist. Now, the protagonist has the most on the line, and he's most affected by the story and the change that's taking place. He's the audience's in, and he's the one that we're rooting for to complete the task. They all started out their story with a fatal flaw that, if left unchecked, would be their ruin. If they overcame their fatal flaw, they would gain an edge over the enemies in a seemingly miraculous way, but if they don't, then they will die a terrible death. Fatal flaws are fatal, as they say. The antagonist is the personification of the fatal flaw to its worst point. He's the bad guy that will do anything possible to defeat the protagonist. He shares the fatal flaw, but not the capacity to change it, which he envies in the protagonist, and will not allow him to move forward while there's still breath in his lungs to stop him. Neither can survive while the other exists. If you want a better good guy, create a really great bad guy for them to go up against, because character is only shown through action and movement towards the goal. You want as impossible a goal as you can imagine, so that he can prove his worth over the long run. The protagonist needs a sidekick that will be his cheerleader. It represents our confidence in ourselves, they build us up, and they remind us why we're the greatest. There's only so far that looking smugly at the camera is going to get you, so, give them someone to remind the audience of their virtue and maybe talk to them from time to time. No matter how bad things get, they are along for the ride. They don't have as much skin in the game as the hero does, but they would follow him to the end of the earth whether or not he succeeds. For every action, there is an equal but opposite reaction. And where the hero gets a sidekick, the antagonist also gets one, and that is called a contagonist. He will do whatever he can to delay him in his efforts on behalf of his master, but he doesn't really share the same passion for it. They introduce tension where there otherwise wouldn't be. The bad guy sends out his minions to up the stakes and give the protagonist a chance to fight somebody without, having to take on the master, and he becomes stronger for the exercise. And probably the most famous of all would be Darth Vader. He doesn't want to defeat Luke because he's his father, but he can't just let him continue doing what he's doing because it would be against his master's wishes. Most characters will follow their head or their heart, so you want to have them in there as well. Dramatica outlines these characters as reason and emotion. Reason is very logical, brainy to a fault, and very order-driven. Emotion is very uncontrolled, sort of fly by the seat of their pants and put more stock in their gut than they do in their head. They are both separate from the action, but not necessarily directly tied to the protagonist, while they will typically follow him around more because you're going to see him more. The competing force to reason and emotion to balance this all out would be the Guardian and the Skeptic. The Guardian is all-knowing. He has all the answers and a lot of experience in exactly what is taking place. They generally always die or inexplicably leave, because if they were to survive, then they would just be able to give us all the answers, and the protagonist wouldn't be able to properly learn to overcome the fatal flaw. Skeptic is a character that doesn't believe anything that's going on. He opposes any action one way or the other. He's just fine with the status quo, and he would leave in a heartbeat if he didn't think that he was getting his needs met. They doubt all the facts. They are more likely to point out why something won't work rather than why it could work. Dramatica doesn't mention one pretty major archetype, which I tend to also add to the list, and that would be the love interest. It's not always in every movie, but it's still pretty necessary to understanding a lot of movies, and other characters are influencing the same story mind, and the love interest is oftentimes embodied by one of those other characters. Emotion, for instance, or even the Guardian character could be your love interest. It represents a side quest for your character, and it's sort of outside the rest of the story, which is why I think that it needs to be mentioned separate from the rest of them. Once you have it on paper, you can revise it and As the saying goes, nothing great is written, it's rewritten. Start with the convention so that your product has a foundation and build it from there. Make it your own unique process from there. For now, my friends and confidants, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. It was a pleasure as always, and you have a wonderful evening.